10 of love, lost in the wind our wedding. My husband, who was on a business trip, sent me a text message proposing divorce. I calmly replied, okay. 3 days later, I finished work and returned home. His, looking disheveled, was sitting on the sofa, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Mrs. Marcus, I'm sorry. We were playing a game that day, so I secretly took Mr. Marcus's phone and sent you that message. Marcus patiently comforted her for a long time, then turned to me and said, Summer is so scared, do you have no sympathy? I think we should just let this go. I was infuriated, laughing in disbelief. I had already prepared the divorce papers, and you're telling me to just let it go. 1. I watched coldly as Marcus helped Summer by the waist, a look of apology on his face as he escorted her out. She leaned against him completely, as if boneless, making it overtly clear she didn't care about me, his wife, yet she still put on a panicked act, looking at me, and spoke words so wrong they almost moved me. Mr. Marcus, you should really go back to Grace. I know I was wrong. Grace looked so angry. Marcus looked deeply pained as he gently comforted her. It's fine, it's late. I'll take you home first. When I get back, I'll talk to her. It's all my fault for spoiling her into being so unreasonable. I strongly suppressed the urge to slap him. Before, Marcus couldn't stand it when a manipulative woman acted out in front of me. He would always push back on my behalf to make me feel better. Now, I was the unreasonable one. I sneered. Go on then, take her straight to bed. Summer's face flushed crimson, while Marcus glared back at me. Grace, what are you saying? Have you no manners? I stifled a yawn, using it to hide the tears welling in my eyes. My words were utterly cold. Aren't you leaving? Do you want to stay here and hear even more ill-mannered things? Summer ran out crying. Marcus shot me a look, then chased after her. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Men are truly fickle. We've only been married 3 years, and he doesn't even have the patience to coax me anymore too. When returned, it was late at night, reeking of alcohol. Carrying a takeout box, he sat beside me, opened the box, and gently pushed it toward me. Grace, are you hungry? I brought your favorite barbecue. I picked up the utensils and poked at the meager amount of food, clearly leftovers. The dish was full of scallions, which I detested. I silently closed the box and threw it into the trash can. I pulled the divorce papers from my bag and placed them in front of him. Marcus, set a time to finalize the divorce. Perhaps my indifferent attitude provoked him. After a few seconds of stunned silence, he picked up the divorce papers and shredded them. His handsome face was contorted with fury, and the hand pointing at me trembled. Grace, you've gone too far. If you keep being dramatic like this, be careful, you might not be able to stop. I didn't say a word, rising to go back to my room. Some things, once stated plainly, lose their appeal. Last month, he was on a business trip. When he returned, I accidentally saw the booking information on his phone. He and Summer went together and booked only one room. At that moment, I clearly realized that this man I had loved for 10 years had betrayed me, body and soul. The reason I had endured until now was because my mother was seriously ill, and I didn't want to worry her. Half an hour later, Marcus came back to the room after showering. I was sitting at my desk, preparing to print a new copy of the divorce papers. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, a diamond necklace wrapped around his fingers. Grace, this is your wedding gift. Do you like it? I took it and casually tossed it onto the desk. I had just seen the same style of necklace on Summer's neck tonight. He was so careless that he bought 2 identical gifts. He wasn't angry at all about my indifference. Instead, he smiled gently. He lightly kissed my earlobe. You don't like it? Then I'll go with you to pick one out tomorrow. No need. I pushed him away and handed him the freshly printed agreement. When do you have time to go through with the paperwork? He crumbled the thin paper into a ball, his face expressionless. Don't be dramatic. If your mother found out, shed definitely. I looked up, trying my best to hold back tears. It doesn't matter. My mom, she's already gone. 3.5 months ago, Marcus called me after work, saying he had a business dinner and I shouldn't wait for him. But then I saw Summer's new social media post. In front of her was an exquisite birthday cake, and Marcus was personally placing a birthday hat on her head. The caption read, 23rd birthday, with the person I love by my side. I'm truly happy. I cried myself to sleep. In the middle of the night, I received a call from the hospital, telling me my mother was in critical condition. It was raining heavily that night. I waited for a long time before a taxi finally arrived. When I rushed to the hospital, my mother was already covered with a sheet, I knelt by the hospital bed, crying until I fainted. When I woke up, I knew in my heart that it was time to let go of this marriage. Marcus's knuckles were turning white as he clutched the crumpled paper. He didn't ask me why I didn't tell him. He knew better than anyone that night. I had called him dozens of times, but he ruthlessly ignored every call. After a long silence, he spoke again. It's better that she's gone, otherwise, knowing you're being so unreasonable, she would have been infuriated to death by you. His cold words, every one of them, pierced my heart. I couldn't endure it anymore. I raised my hand and slapped him. 10 years of love, countless arguments, and I was always the one who always backed down. Marcus's face instantly turned cold. He picked up the jacket hanging on the coat rack and left without a word. He thought I would apologize to him as before, begging him not to leave. But this time, I said nothing, letting him go for. Marcus's and my love story had always been a celebrated tale on social media. No one expected that the top student in the school, the good girl in the teacher's eyes, would end up with the problematic boy who was always at the bottom of the class, smoking and fighting all day. He was an illegitimate child, lacking proper discipline for a long time, and single-handedly dragged down the entire class's average score. The teachers were frustrated. During a routine seating rearrangement, they placed him and me together. The stated reason was a one-on-one assistance program, with the noble intention of helping a classmate. I tirelessly explained problems to him, but each time, he would threaten me with his fist, saying he'd beat me if I kept talking. With tears in my eyes, I still refused to give up. Determined to change him, perhaps my persistence moved him. He finally slumped onto the desk in resignation, listening as I explained things to him over and over. In the exam a month later, his grades dramatically improved, jumping to third from the bottom. I went to Eleanor's place with a backpack full of snacks to encourage him, but I unexpectedly walked in on Eleanor whipping him with a belt, hitting and cursing him. You good for nothing. I should have drowned you in the toilet back then. I originally thought that no matter what, you're a son, and Marcus's family home wouldn't abandon you. You're so useless, they don't even want to look at you. I don't know where the courage came from, but I rushed over and shielded him. Andy, you can't curse him like that, Marcus. He has his strengths. He pushed me down from behind and viciously kicked me twice. Get lost. I don't need your pity. Later, all the snacks I gave him were thrown into the trash can, and the difficult notes I'd stayed up several nights organizing for him were torn to shreds. My friends all said I was blind, wasting my efforts on such a scumbag, but it was also him who, when I accidentally fell into the water, unhesitatingly jumped in to save me. He used all his strength to drag me ashore, holding me and trembling uncontrollably. A rare look of fear appeared on his usually arrogant face. He buried his head in my neck, crying uncontrollably. Grace, I'm sorry, I could never say it, but you're so important to me. I don't want to lose you. From now on, can I be the one to protect you? He accompanied me in the ambulance, all the way to the hospital, never letting go of my hand. The doctor teased him, asking if he was so nervous because I was his girlfriend. He blushed and nodded, begging the doctor to save me like in a TV drama, making the doctors and nurses laugh together. After that day, he began to study diligently. He said he had to work hard and get into the same university as me. He said I was so clumsy, and if he wasn't there, I would surely be bullied. But now, the one bullying me was also him. 5. After graduating from college, he started his own business. We were very poor back then, renting a small loft apartment that leaked wind in winter and rain in summer. During that time, it was truly tough. Every penny had to be stretched thin. No exaggeration, we couldn't afford meat even once a week. Yet, we were happy. We walked out hand in hand every day, and even when we squeezed into the narrow kitchen to cook, would laugh and tease each other. There was a time when our hearts and eyes were filled only with each other. Later, his business succeeded, our homes grew larger, and money flowed in, but we saw each other less and less, and the hands we held unknowingly drifted apart. 6 months ago, Summer, fresh out of college, appeared by his side. He mentioned more than once how interesting his new assistant was. Always full of energy, very much like me when I first graduated. I just never expected her to usurp my place so quickly. Ms. Grace, are you going to keep this baby? The doctor's concerned words interrupted my thoughts. The hand clutching my examination report trembled slightly. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Doctor, please arrange the abortion procedure for me as soon as possible. I truly hadn't expected this child to come at such an inconvenient time. since I was determined to get a divorce. There was no need to add any more TIs between us. As I was about to pay, holding the prescription the doctor had given me, I unexpectedly ran into Summer. Grace, what are you doing here? She looked up at the obstetric sign on the clinic door behind me and covered her mouth. Grace, you're not pregnant, are you? That's wonderful. Her feigned surprise was nauseating. I gave her a faint glance and spoke coldly. No, I just happened to pass by this department. I was so focused on getting rid of her quickly that I didn't notice when Marcus appeared beside me. He had a somber expression, carrying a large bag of medicine. The moment he appeared, Summer immediately looked weak and leaned into his arms, explaining coyly to me, Grace, don't misunderstand. I don't know what's wrong with me today. My stomach has been feeling nauseous. Mr. Marcus insisted on bringing me to see a doctor. It's so annoying. The doctor prescribed a bunch of stomach medicine, and I hate taking medicine. The blatant provocation in her eyes stung, making my eyes ache. Mr. Marcus, it's time to get back to work. We still have a few meetings to attend. She tugged on Marcus's sleeve, reminding him softly. Marcus completely ignored her, only staring at the prescription in my hand. Are you not feeling well? Why didn't you tell me? Seeing I didn't speak, he reached out, trying to take the paper from me. I put my hand behind my back, a flicker of disgust in my eyes. It's just a small cold. No need for Mr. Marcus to worry. I turned to leave, but Marcus blocked my way. Grace, stop being dramatic. You look so pale, it'll take you back. Just as he was about to reach out to help me, Summer suddenly clutched her stomach and crouched down. Her delicate face was etched with pain, but she looked up and considerately said she was fine. Marcus looked at me conflicted, but ultimately withdrew his hand. Grace, take a taxi back yourself first. I'll be back to be with you soon. As soon as he spoke, he no longer hesitated, turning to help Summer up. I stood with my back to him, letting tears drip onto the back of my hand. Just a moment ago, I had even considered whether or not to keep this child. Now I was clear. He didn't deserve it. The cold operating table made me want to escape for a moment. But then I remembered seeing Marcus and Summer kissing openly at the hospital entrance, as if no one else was there. A chill ran through me. I quietly extended my arm, watching the anesthetic flow into my body through the needle. The surgery was easier than I expected. In less than an hour, I was able to get out of bed on my own. The woman in the bed next to mine was crying, being gently held and comforted by her husband. My eyes reddened with emotion. I used to have that feeling of being cherished and cared for. After listening to the doctor's instructions and getting my medicine, I took a taxi home alone, home, to my own place. 6. My mother left me a small house, not big, only about 40 square meters, but it was enough to be my safe harbor. Opening the door, dust billowed out. No one had been here for a long time, dragging my tired body. It took me 2 hours to finish cleaning. Having just had surgery and working so hard was really too much for me. I had no appetite and didn't want to move, so I just ordered takeout. While watching TikTok and waiting for my takeout, Marcus called. His voice held an indescribable urgency. Grace, Eleanor isn't feeling well, and she can't find her medicine. Can you come over? I forced a bitter smile. Although I didn't want to go, I had no choice but to agree. Eleanor hadn't been well these past few years, and her temper had also worsened. I often went to take care of her, and I was the one who organized all her essential medications. There were so many different medicines, it was hard to explain over the phone. I couldn't just stand by and watch Eleanor fall into danger. Luckily, it wasn't far from Eleanor's place. I grabbed a coat and left. When I arrived, I found Summer was also there. The table was covered with food, and Eleanor, with a rosy face, sat between Summer and Marcus, picking up a piece of meat and putting it in Summer's bowl. From an outsider's perspective, they looked like a happy, harmonious family. I pressed my lips together and quickly walked to the cabinet, expertly finding the small medicine bottle. After placing the medicine in front of Eleanor, I turned to leave, but my hand was grabbed by Marcus. His face was grim, his gaze like a knife fixed on me. Grace, who are you giving that attitude to? I shook off Marcus's hand and glared back at him. You called me. Your voice so frantic as if Eleanor was on her last breath. And I rushed over. And what for? Just to watch you put on a show of family harmony? Marcus's face paled slightly, but he didn't give an inch. Eleanor was having an episode. But it took you almost an hour to get here? If hadn't run out to buy the medicine, would Eleanor still be sitting here? My place was over 10 kilometers from here, and it was rush hour. I waited half an hour just to get a taxi. There was traffic, and I was afraid of further delays, so I got out 2 blocks away and ran the rest of the way. My lower abdomen ached faintly. I had no energy to argue with him anymore, so I just shut up. Summer, sensing the moment, stood up, tears in her eyes, and said aggrievedly, "Mr. Marcus, it's my fault. I shouldn't disturb your family reunion. I'll leave now." Unable to stand her manipulative act, I snorted coldly, "Summer, whether you like to steal other people's husbands is your business. Please don't put on this innocent act in front of me. It makes me sick." With a loud clatter, Eleanor, who had been silent, threw down her utensils and glared at me with an enraged face. "Grace, you have no manners. Apologize to Ms. Summer. A woman who can't bear children has no right to shout at me." In the past, I was always polite to Eleanor, but she never gave me a pleasant look. She disliked me for not getting pregnant, thinking I wasn't good enough for Marcus, and her words were always sarcastic. I never bothered to argue with her, but today, I refused to endure it any longer. I took the surgery receipt from my jacket pocket and coldly tossed it in front of her. "Congratulations. You had a grandchild. Too bad I miscarried it." Eleanor unfolded the surgery receipt, and her face grew paler as she read. Summer covered her mouth, looking at me in disbelief. "Grace, how could you abort the baby? Are you even human for doing something like that?" Despite her sorrowful tone, a hint of glee flashed in her eyes. Since the facade had been completely shattered, I had fewer reservations. My gaze swept around, finally landing on the dining table. Staring intently at the steaming bowl of chicken soup on the table, I asked her in a cold voice, "Do you know which kind of person is truly not human? It's people like you, who rush to be a fawning admirer to someone else's husband." 7. I poured a bowl of hot soup over her head, and watching her shriek, I felt immense satisfaction. What followed was the feeling of exhaustion and weakness. So when Summer completely dropped her delicate facade and furiously lunged at me, trying to hit me, I was like a broken rag doll, utterly defenseless. It was Marcus who grabbed her collar and pulled her away, ignoring's tearful accusations. Marcus steadied me as I felt my body go limp. A glimmer of tears flashed in his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, I seemed to see the old him who had saved me. Marcus's voice choked, and his arms around me tightened gradually. "Grace, it's okay. We can have another baby." My cold laugh was his only response. "Marcus, you don't actually think I want to have children with you, do you? Don't be like that. It actually makes me sick." Using my last bit of strength, I pushed him away. I left, leaning against the wall, without looking back. Marcus stubbornly tried to chase after me, but Eleanor sharply yelled at him to stop. "Get lost, let her get lost. You're divorcing her immediately. From now on, I only recognize Summer as my daughter-in-law." 8. After I returned, my abdomen was unbearably painful. I went to the hospital overnight and had a thorough checkup. The doctor shook his head as he held my report. He ordered me to stay on bed rest for at least 7 days. I took leave from work, silenced my phone, and spent the entire day lying on the sofa, reading and daydreaming. These past few days, I thought a lot. When we first got married, Eleanor kept pressuring me to have a baby, and sometimes what she said was very unpleasant. At first, Marcus would still protect me, arguing with Eleanor. Next, if later, he became silent, and even joined in blaming me for being too busy with work and ruining my health, which was why I couldn't get pregnant. I knew he longed for a child to make up for his incomplete family background. So, when that expectation fell through, he must have been heartbroken. I felt no guilt at all. This soul-crushing pain of losing someone you love was the most devastating psychological blow I could give him. Marcus called me many times, but I ignored all of them. Then he started sending me text messages, one after another. He asked why I decided to abort the baby, whether it was because of that divorce message. He claimed he was unaware. Very innocent. He said I couldn't punish him for someone else's mistake. It was unfair to him. He demanded an explanation from me. I only replied with one sentence: "Marcus, stop being unreasonable." He had said that sentence to me countless times during every argument we had. He understood the mockery in my words, so he never contacted me again. The high and mighty Mr. Marcus naturally wouldn't lose his pride back at the company. When I faced the inquiring glances from my colleagues, I simply smiled faintly. I didn't tell anyone about the divorce, except for the new Ethan at the company. The first time I saw him, I inexplicably remembered Marcus's description of Summer as full of energy. It was true. He did resemble Marcus when he first graduated, So when he smiled and asked if I had a boyfriend, I softly told him I was getting a divorce. He became my subordinate, and we gradually grew familiar with each other. He would volunteer to take me home after working overtime and would invite me to grab a late-night snack. We became friends, just ordinary friends. I saw Marcus again a month later. I truly hadn't expected him to be the project client for our new project. The day he came to sign the contract, all the women in the office were buzzing about him. After all, his 6 feet tall height, clean, handsome face, coupled with a gentle smile, made it hard not to attract women's attention. He sat patiently in the conference room. When he saw Ethan and me chatting and laughing as we walked in, his smile froze, anger slowly crept onto his face. Grace, who is he? I really didn't have the patience to explain to him. Besides, I've always been straightforward and honest, so there was no need to explain anything. I ignored him, simply putting the contract in front of him with a professional smile. But he grabbed my wrist, pulled me with a slight force, and pulled me into his arms. Grace, you haven't been home for so long. Is it because you've been with him? I was a bit annoyed and struggled to break free. My words cold. Mr. Marcus, please respect yourself. Don't forget, we're going through a divorce. Who I'm with is none of your business. Marcus stubbornly held me, refusing to let go. He buried his face in my hair, his voice tinged with a hint of a sob. Grace, no divorce. I won't divorce you. After you left, I couldn't sleep all night. I dreamed you disappeared, and our baby. Who said he wouldn't return? Ethan watched all this helplessly until the conference room door was pushed open. Summer stood outside, her face pale, followed by my colleagues. She was holding 2 cups of coffee, and the paper cups were crushed in her hand. She threw the coffee into the trash can, walked to Marcus's side, and softly urged him to let go. Marcus, in a fit of anger, turned and roared at her. Get lost. This is my wife. What right do you have to tell me to let go? How dare you treat me like this? Summer's face turned beet red, and she started crying and hitting Marcus. While was momentarily stunned, I broke free from his grip and fled the conference room. Summer relentlessly grabbed Marcus, who was trying to follow me. During their struggle, Marcus forcefully pushed her backward. She must have fallen hard. So hard she forgot to cry. I looked back to see Summer sitting on the ground, a pool of blood spread beneath her. She stared at Marcus blankly, her voice trembling. I think I miscarried 9. The ambulance took Summer away, but Marcus stayed behind. Only he and I were left in the conference room. I raised an eyebrow and asked him, aren't you going to the hospital to check on her? Anger still lingered in his eyes, his voice low and suppressed with fury. Grace, believe it or not, I didn't cheat, and the child isn't mine. His words didn't matter to me. At this point, I didn't care if the child was his or not. I looked down and pulled up a screenshot of hotel booking information saved on my phone, handing it to him. You said you didn't cheat, so are you trying to tell me that on the night you'd booked only 1 room, you slept on the floor? His gaze quickly dulled, and his entire face was filled with the panic of being exposed. The knuckles gripping his phone started turning white. After a long silence, he finally lifted his gaze from the phone. Grace, Summer and I, that was the only time really. She was too forward. I lost control, but I swear, she absolutely did not get pregnant with my child. After it was over, I personally watched her take birth control. Grace, give me another chance. I impatiently stood up, cutting him off. Marcus, you chose your own path. From the day I knew you cheated, I couldn't be with you anymore. Honestly, I feel disgusted just seeing you now. So let's not waste any more time. I've lost my patience. If you insist on not divorcing, I'm afraid I'll have to go through the legal route. As I walked out of the conference room door, Marcus followed behind me. He wanted to reach out and pull me, but he was startled by my knife-like glare and sheepishly withdrew his hand. He tried to keep following me, but Ethan blocked his way. Marcus, usually so composed, suddenly broke down at that moment. He punched Ethan in the face, and in return, he was also knocked back to steps by a punch. I ignored the 2 men brawling behind me and walked away on my own. Through the slowly closing elevator doors, I saw that they had stopped fighting, each looking at me with complex expressions. I smiled at them and pressed the elevator button 10. I submitted my resignation and decided to take some time off. I packed a few simple things and booked a flight to Santa. I had always wanted to travel. I couldn't afford it before, and when I could, I was bogged down by various things. It was ironic. Only after deciding to divorce could I finally live just for myself. The journey was very pleasant. It turned out that when people truly go out and explore, they are no longer confined to their small world. After half a month of traveling, I set off for home, dragging my suitcase downstairs. I suddenly saw a familiar figure standing at the building entrance. Marcus looked at me, his eyes filled with joy. After half a month apart, he had lost weight. There was an unconcealed exhaustion in his eyes, and he, who was always so neat, had even forgotten to shave. He must have had a very difficult time during this period. I glared at him with some annoyance, entered the password, and opened the gate. As he eagerly tried to follow me inside, I held out a hand to block him. The neighbor across the hall happened to come downstairs to throw out trash. I turned slightly, letting him pass. As he walked past Marcus, he couldn't help but say, "Ms. Grace, your husband has been waiting for you downstairs for days. It's normal for couples to have disagreements. You're both young. Talk things over properly. Don't miss out on each other because of a misunderstanding." The words I wanted to explain got stuck in my throat. Seeing look at me pleadingly, I couldn't help but sigh. "Come in." I withdrew my hand, signaling him to follow. It was a good opportunity to finally discuss the divorce papers that had been delayed for so long. Once inside, I went to the kitchen to wash my hands. He eagerly followed, a look of flattery in his eyes, and asked me, "Grace, are you hungry?" I had planned to say no, but my stomach unseasonably rumbled. There was nothing in the refrigerator. He wouldn't give up, pressing me onto the sofa, saying, "Borrow some food from the neighbors." I couldn't help but find it amusing. The esteemed Mr. Marcus, now lowering his dignity to knock on neighbors' doors to borrow food. 10 minutes later, he returned, holding a few tomatoes and eggs, a smile on his face. I watched him wash the tomatoes and then clumsily crack the eggs. He wasn't really good at cooking. In the past 10 years, he would occasionally get on a whim and volunteer to cook, but the end result was either an barely recognizable concoction or almost setting the kitchen on fire. Each time, he would look apologetic, leaning his head on my chin like a puppy, nuzzling and whining playfully, saying, "Wife, I'm too clumsy, I can't even cook. Luckily, I have you, or I'd surely starve to death. You have to promise me you'll never leave me. I want to eat your cooking my whole life." I laughed until tears came out. His sweet words from the past now felt like sharp swords, piercing my heart. I don't know when Marcus learned to cook. When he came out of the kitchen, he was sweating, but the scrambled eggs with tomatoes he held were perfect in color, aroma, and taste. Facing my questioning gaze, he forced a smile. "Grace, while you were gone, I reflected. Before, I always expected you to take care of me and ignored your feelings. These past few years, I've been too opinionated, unable to see your silent efforts, and even did hurtful things to you. I specifically learned this dish, thinking it'd make it for you when you returned. Grace, we've been together for 10 years. Please don't give up on me, okay?" I didn't answer him. I picked up the utensils and put a little egg in my mouth. He had forgotten to add salt. Besides the soreness of the tomatoes, the whole dish had a hint of bitterness. I swallowed it with my eyes closed and handed him the utensils. He took a bite, his entire face scrunching up. Marcus dejectedly poured the dish into the trash can and was about to go to the neighbors again to get more ingredients to remake it. But I stopped him with my hand. I spoke calmly. "Marcus, this dish is like our broken marriage. All that's left are bitterness and soreness. I can't forgive you. I'm truly sorry." The resolute look in my eyes was too obvious. When I took out the divorce papers again, Marcus didn't hesitate. He took the pen and signed them. He didn't even read the terms carefully. Watching his lonely back as he left, so despairing, his steps were unsteady, so flustered that he knocked over the flower pot the neighbor had placed by the door. I couldn't help but call out to him. He turned his head in surprise. I paused, then softly cautioned him, "Be careful on your way." Ultimately, it was disappointment. He nodded. This time, he didn't look back again. 11. Once got into the car, the emotions he had been suppressing finally erupted. He leaned on the steering wheel, sobbing uncontrollably. He still couldn't understand why I could just stop loving him. We had so many beautiful memories. Just because he made one wrong step, I was so cruel to him. He floored the gas pedal, and the car shot into the darkness like an arrow released from a bow. Marcus had a car accident. At an intersection not far from my home, due to excessive speed, he accidentally crashed into a guardrail. He was severely injured. A broken piece of the guardrail pierced through his body. By the time he was brought to the hospital, he was clinging to life. Eleanor called me, crying, begging me to come to the hospital to see him. He was on the hospital bed, repeatedly mumbling my name. I stumbled to the hospital, looking at Marcus lying on the hospital bed, covered in tubes, barely breathing. It was impossible not to feel sad. Memories of our 10 years of sweetness flashed through my mind, frame by frame, like a movie. I cried until my eyes were red and swollen. In the face of death, everything else becomes insignificant. Marcus raised his hand, signaling me to come closer. He spoke with difficulty, his voice so faint I had to lean close to hear. He said, "Grace, I'm sorry. If there's a next life, I will never betray you." He also said, "Grace, listen to me. Tear up the divorce papers." After I nodded, tears in my eyes, he called Eleanor over. I don't know what they talked about, but when Eleanor turned back, her eyes seemed to spew fire, full of hatred. She cursed me through gritted teeth. "Grace, you've harmed my son like this. What right do you have to his property? You're a jinx. I should have kicked you out much earlier." The 60-something-year-old woman actually looked ferocious, wanting to lunge and hit me. Marcus laboriously pulled her hand, speaking with pain. "Mom, don't let me die unable to rest in peace." 12. It rained heavily the day Marcus was buried. I buried him not far from my mother, so that every time I visited my mother, I could bring him flowers too. 10 years of marriage, after all, some affection remained. Eleanor fell seriously ill. She seemed to have lost all will to live. During her final days, I responsibly took care of her. People often become kinder as they face death. She no longer cursed me, and her eyes looked much kinder when she saw me. On her deathbed, she held my hand and apologized to me. She said she was actually grateful that I had taken care of her for years, and she knew I was kind. But she had endured many humiliations when she was young. After became successful, she felt she finally had her moment to shine, but the bitterness from her youth had nowhere to go. She could only take it out on me. After's accident, she also hated me, thinking I was cruel, believing Marcus could have kept the baby. But then she came to her senses, realizing she had been unfair to Marcus by giving birth to him without a father. After saying this, her eyes slowly lost their focus. I sighed and tucked in her blanket. I wish that, in the next life, we would never meet again. 13. All matters were settled half a month later. I began to take over Marcus's company. It was difficult at first, but gradually, things got on track. The only surprise was Summer. I didn't expect that she hadn't miscarried. After being taken to the hospital that day, she had somehow managed to keep the baby. When she reappeared before me, she was already showing. Her slightly swollen face held a hint of triumph. "Grace, the child in my belly is Marcus's, his only child. If you give me a portion of the assets, I can promise you that once the baby is born, I'll give him to you to raise, and I'll go abroad and never bother you again." I inexplicably felt a bit sorry for her, so I asked how much she intended to ask for. To my surprise, she made an outrageous demand, asking for half the assets. I smiled, shaking my head to refuse. If she hadn't asked for too much, I might have considered it. She furiously declared she would sue me, her arrogance almost making me believe the child in her belly was truly Marcus's. She probably thought that since Marcus had already turned to dust, there would be no one to contradict her. Undeterred, I opened a drawer, took out an exquisite box, and opened it in front of her. Inside was a tooth. I told her it was a tooth Marcus had lost in a fight while defending me, kept as a memento to this day if she wanted to sue. "We could use this for a paternity test first." Her face turned ashen, and she was too flustered to utter another word. Only after she fled in disarray did I burst into laughter. Young girls are so easily fooled. This tooth was just a wisdom tooth I had pulled at the dentist recently. Besides, Marcus had already been buried, so there was no way to prove it was his tooth. However, Summer's fate was not a pleasant one. I heard the baby's father was also a company executive, and she waited until she was 6 months pregnant before showing up at his door to demand money. This time, she didn't dare ask for too much, cautiously requesting only $1 million in compensation. Unfortunately, the baby's father's wife was a fierce woman who immediately grabbed Summer by the hair and brutally kicked her several times in the stomach. The baby's father watched the entire time, didn't dare to say a word. Summer was once again taken to the hospital by ambulance. This time, she wasn't so lucky. Not only was the baby lost, but she almost died from excessive blood loss in the end. She had no choice but to have her uterus removed to save her life. The video of her being beaten by the legal wife until she miscarried was posted online. Under the public outcry, she was even pointed at and called a homewrecker whenever she left the house. It wasn't long before she disappeared from the city. As for me, after taking over the company, I humbly learned, often working late into the night, and became increasingly proficient at my job, with the company in my hands. It actually developed better than it had when Marcus was in charge. As for relationships, many eligible bachelors have confessed their feelings to me, but I'm not in a hurry. Life is long. There's no need to rush things. That's all for today's story. Thank you for listening. This is my channel. The tales I share drawn from life or woven from imagination are meant to offer you connection, reflection, and perhaps solace or newfound strength. If you long to see your own reflection in others' journeys, or seek a glimmer of light within the maze of emotions, subscribe to my channel. Listen with your heart. Explore the stories of life.